Greetings and welcome to episode number 13 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about everything past, present, and future of one of gaming's most storied franchises. For this week, we have a continuation of sandbox updates from 343. We have new information about weapons, abilities, and vehicles. There was a new hire at 343 that caused a little bit of stir, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and what it actually means. And finally, we'll talk about Halo's quote-unquote new way to play. First, let's meet today's Spartan team. Joining me today is, as usual, Spartan Mike, a.k.a. Kage Maru. How's it going, Mr. Mike?
Hey, it's going good. How you guys doing?
Super. Ready to talk about some Halo? All right. And next up, we got...
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you if you're going to introduce the next one.
Yeah, no, keep going. Next up, we got Spartan. So, Mike, we'll give Mike a little bit of a few minutes to wake up. Next up, Spartan Urso, aka Soul Blazer. How's it going, man?
Hey guys, going pretty good. I'm honestly kind of surprised at how often we're getting Halo Infinite news.
Yes. It's been making our job a little bit easier, that's for sure. Next up, we have Spartan Jesse, aka Don Cabeza. How's it going, Mr. Jesse?
What's going on?
I feel like that's plagiarism. Next up, we have Spartan Austin, aka Proven. How's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. How about everyone else?
Good. How's that mic doing today?
I guess it's doing okay.
Good. And then we have our returning new, I guess now regular attender, Spartan Daniel, aka Nadia. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty good. Excited to talk about some Halo. It's been a nice long weekend, so I'm ready to jump in.
Yeah, you just got done doing a lot of moving, so you should have plenty. You should be plenty energized for today's show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Monday's off too.
You guys.
And finally, as your host today, I'm Spartan One Bad Mother. And before we get into some of the topics, I do have a couple announcements. We have some upcoming events. I want to make our audience aware that we are planning on some community Halo night. So keep a lookout for that. Some announcements. We'll be doing some custom games and some big Halo matches, and hopefully can have some fun getting to talk to people who listen to the show and part of the Xbox era community. Also, we've been long overdue on our upcoming book special episode. So we've talked about that in the past, decided to finally put a date on it. So we'll be recording that next week. And whoever has finished the book will end up joining Jesse. And, who else here has finished the book already? It's Jesse. Oh, and Mr. Nadian. All right. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a few more
like
of us.
20 pages, basically.
I will be done by Wednesday.
All right.
I don't read a book.
The only thing I know how to read is the menu and Macca's.
Oh shit! All right, cool. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything for announcements, you guys? I think that's
No, that's it. If you guys haven't seen Jesse's MCC review, definitely give it a shot. Very well made.
Yeah,
Yes.
you put a lot of work into that as well.
A lot of hesitation on agreeing with him there.
My mind is multitasking right now. You'll have to forgive me. So, all right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into the meat of this week's news. So there was a Ask 343 Halo Infinite sandbox show, and so they really. What we got is some questions. A lot of it really was a continuation of some of the things we talked about 2 weeks ago. They went into some more detail. They did drop some new information that wasn't part of that initial sandbox release, which I think will be interesting to kind of touch on. So there's some different categories. I think what we'll go ahead and do is we'll break this up into a few of the different categories they touched on. and just get everybody's thoughts on that. There might be a little bit of overlap with what we talked about last week, but I do think some of the new information, when you start putting it into the bigger context, does paint a better picture and starts to give you a little bit better opinion. So let's go ahead and start off with something they confirmed about. Something they confirmed was that PvE and PvP will be balanced separately. And in addition to that, there was the developers did talk about the fact that the game would be consistently evolving. So whatever that gap is initially between the PvE and PvP, we should expect that to probably widen over time. So I want to go ahead and start off with you. So did you have what was kind of your thoughts when you heard about that?
I mean, it makes sense. I feel like it's always a fool's errand trying to balance both PvP and PvE at the same time. It's something that, as a longtime WoW player, it's led to mass suffering and also led to like good stuff at the same time. I feel like the more interesting thing is the fact that they're really open with the fact that the game's going to change from launch. So the impression I got was that Halo Infinite on November 15th will not be the same game on February the next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is kind of common in our live service games. How does that make you feel? Like, does that make you feel more? Do you feel any way about that? Like, are you more positive, or?
I mean, it's definitely a good thing. I feel personally, though. At the same time, it's also not. I guess barring Halo 5, it's not something that's been the most common in Halo. Games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, of course, you expect a significant amount of change. Overwatch. That kind of thing, MOBAs. But for the most part, at least my opinion, the way I've played COD, Titanfall, these games have remained pretty static. I guess might be the right word.
Yeah.
Where they might change a few things, but at the end of the day, the gameplay is still the same. And even with Halo 5, if you play Halo 5 Arena today, it still plays pretty similar, almost the same as it did at launch.
Yeah,
so I'm
there's been weapons balance.
Yeah, weapon balancing, of course. But I'm kind of curious if they'll be actively changing even the core game modes, like Arena or Big Team Battle.
That has been a big part of what has made Fortnite successful in being very popular long term, is they are constantly changing it up. And I think with something like Halo, you leave a core mode that is what people want all the time, but you always have experimental things going that really take it further than they ever have in the past.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jesse, and probably something worth elaborating on. So we know that Microsoft itself has always been a data-driven company, and I think in the past, before they started before they started to restructure and bring in all these studios, you have to figure that they were, looking at some of the trends like that. So do you think like the success of Fortnite's going to have a direct impact on what 343 does, or do you just think it's just something they're going to be, like you're saying? Do you expect much wider sweeping changes compared to anything else that we've seen, maybe aside from Fortnite?
Well, with how it's being described as, not a live service game without saying it's live service, saying it's ongoing, it's a platform, then I think that's what it sets the stage for, is a heavy focus on, we want to have the absolute best arena, and our Forge mode and stuff like that are going to be there for people who are creative, which Fortnite has taken a huge advantage from, of people's creativity, giving it a longevity, getting them to keep playing everything. You're free to play. You don't require gold. I got to imagine Forge mode would be included in that. And you can do things like perks for Game Pass Ultimate, because a lot of free-to-play games have been putting perks in there where you get some form of DLC. Like there's still a reason for it. Maybe because it's their first party and their big thing, they put the first season pass or something in there. Yeah, that type of stuff. I think that'll be huge for longevity, but nothing's bigger than allowing people to be creative when they want to be and just play with their friends.
Yeah, I mean, really good points. Mike, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Jesse. I hope the changes aren't so sweeping so fast, though, because then that would mean that they screwed up. Like not that they screwed up, but it wasn't as polished or solid as that we would all hope at launch. But yeah, I mean, the whole calling it a service, the whole service aspect and updating it. One, I'm happy that they're taking the multiplayer and campaign separate route, because that just gives them a lot more freedom and flexibility to how to balance things. And I don't know. None of this really changes my opinion of any of it, because ever since they've been calling it a platform that's going to last 10 years, I was like, okay, this is a games as a service that's not being called games as a service, because that has a negative image to it. Yeah, exactly. So now instead of a gas game, these are games as a platform. And
yeah, because it's not. I think a lot of people always end up associating games as a service with loot games, and this won't be.
Right, and there's plenty of games as
Microtransactions.
service games that are fantastic, that are supported well, that
yeah,
et cetera, et cetera.
Unfortunately, those are like in the minority, which is what I think is causing the problem. If we had more games like what's that ninja game? I just had it out the tip of my tongue. Warframe. Thank you. Yeah.
I was actually thinking of that exact same thing too.
If we had more games like Warframe, then I don't think it would have the negative image it does today.
The Warframe, I feel, would actually fall under the game as a platform more so than games as a service, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought they were the same. I always saw them as the
they
same.
are.
GAS in my head, I feels more like, I don't know, like non-giant games. Like I don't know if I'd consider Fortnite a GAS in that sense. It is, of course, and I get that, but I mean, it's more than just a games as a service, you know?
I feel like
people live and die on it.
Yeah.
Like
these monikers are just
Halo Infinite is about the most gas game that will be released this generation. So I mean, it is games as a service.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand the branding, right? Like trying to stay away from, the pay to win thing that EA tried at one point, and some of the other stuff that's out there. I think, Mike, you brought up some interesting points, because I tend to be very optimistic right now, maybe on the more optimistic end of Halo Infinite than the average person. But, when I hear the average person, they're like, and they hear, oh, so you're already kind of setting it up that you can come out there and just drop whatever. But you hear that all the time, right? From people that are more pessimistic about, whether it's Microsoft's, output last generation, or how Sea of Thieves launched and things like that. So you do hear some of those concerns that it gives, setting it up like that gives an excuse. I try to keep everything in context, though, and I just think within the context, I mean, it has a lot of exciting possibilities, and I think that based on the fact they delayed it a year, they know they can't just throw something out there later.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I think it's going to need a lot of change and a lot of polishing and stuff when it launches. I'm half joking when I'm just saying that the broad sweeping of changes that we can see done to a games as a platform or a games as a service or whatever. I'm hoping it's not something that's needed at launch, but I'm half joking, because I completely agree that the extra year, the extra time, everything. When you think about it, everything that we've heard, seen, read, since that poor first showing has been good, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Like they've been saying all the right things. So I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm more optimistic with this than I am with something like a game from EA. Because if they stick with it, as long as I get 3 games worth of content, I would say, like single player. To me, it doesn't matter if the trilogy is 3 separate games or lumped in the one package. As long as they give me that campaign narrative type of experience, then they can do whatever they want with the rest.
Yeah, you bring up another really interesting point, but actually before that, I do want to get Proven's thought on this, and then I want to come back to some of that stuff, because you brought up some interesting things that almost are new topics. But Proven, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, specifically for the games as a service thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the the thing about like the negative connotation towards games as a service is people imagine like a game where you have to pay money to progress or to do well. I think for Halo, that's like I'm assuming they're only going to be selling weapon skins and other customization. So I think the thing is they have to make a game that people want to play, and then people are going to pay money for it. So that's like the difference. Like as a platform, like for Apex Legends, like you don't have to pay any money for that game. You could just play it and spend no money and have a good time. But like I like the other day, I just spent like $10 on the battle pass because I like playing that game so much.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good point, and I do think there is connotations, and everything gets kind of lumped in with a broad brush, just like almost everything in society these days. You know, you kind of pick a characteristic, you label it, and then everything else that can pick up that label seems to get lumped in with those negative characteristics or positive, I guess, depending on what side that you're on. Daniel, like any other thoughts on that? You know, about the balancing aspect of it.
Yeah, and really quick on kind of reiterating what Austin was saying, and Mike, games as a service is such a kind of a misnomer of a moniker at this point, because games that some people would never even consider as game services are, such as State of Decay or Ghost of Tsushima, where they're adding new and additional functions and features and modes over the course. They may not classify it as such, but that is exactly what it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
great point too, and Ghost of Tsushima. Nobody, that's like that's a great example. Yeah, that's a games as a service, and it's actually added to that community, right?
Yeah, right, and it's very much a weaponized thing, and I think we all know which corners it kind of falls from. But as far as I think the balancing between single player and multiplayer is fantastic. One of the things that people have issues with games like Destiny is that they will balance something for PvP, and then obviously everybody who only plays campaign, or I'm sorry, the fire team single player strikes and all that kind of stuff, you end up suffering as a result. So I think having it separated, knowing that they're going to be balancing specifically for weapon values for campaign versus PvP is a huge plus in my book. I think that's only going to be helpful, and I am optimistic too about the general platform of things, but I hope that they balance that line between as we all know, the vocal minority that come out online, that come out on Twitter and say, hey, this needs to change. This isn't quote unquote balanced, or this isn't, it doesn't feel right. And so if you respond too quickly, then obviously that's problematic. So I'm hoping that they are familiar enough with their platform that they don't have to do that.
Yeah, really good points. Hey, we do have a new challenger that entered the arena. we got Mr. Nick, aka Shpeshal Ed, aka Nick Stone.
What's going on?
Good Lord, that's the second time we had to hear that today. So.
Oh really? Why? Where'd you hear it the first time?
What's going on?
Oh, okay.
He's been practicing.
Right.
So,
it's good to see.
So Nick, I know you just kind of walked into the conversation halfway through. I don't know if you caught any of it, or you want to, add in. We were just talking about.
I did not. Sorry, I've been putting out spot fires. So I have not heard.
Okay, so the first topic was we're touching on the sandbox, and there's different aspects of it. Right now, we're talking about on the PvE versus PvP, how they're going to be balanced separately, and then how the game's going to evolve, over time, how that was really emphasized. And so we're talking about what we thought that meant. So, do you have any kind of thoughts on that initially that jumped to mind?
Oh God, geez.
Or we can move on and come back.
To be honest.
All right.
Yeah. Feel free. I just came in to annoy you guys, and I'll probably jump out in a second.
It's all good, man. It's always great to have you along. So,
It really is.
Before I move on to the next topic, I'll just kind of throw in a couple of thoughts. I think you guys really summarized it well, so I won't just repeat what a lot of you said regarding the gas versus platform. And I think anybody's been following the game, there's nothing there that should be really that shocking. I will say the one interesting thing that just jumped to my mind that really hasn't been discussed much is, as they talked about the difference between the PvE and the PvP being balanced separately and how the game's going to evolve. Again, we remember it's a platform and that the single player, like Mike was really even talking about, the single player itself will also be evolving over time. And I kind of wondered about that too, because you think there's probably going to be unique opportunities from that you don't get when you have mainline releases every 3 years, because when you have mainline releases every 3 years, you really can't take too many chances, on a game that needs to sell, a jillion copies every time. I think when you do have maybe these more iterative releases, and the change is not going to be in the game engine, they can spend some more time on balancing out the sandbox, trying different things with the level design and that kind of stuff. So I'm happy that they're maybe diverging, and I think that's getting it's kind of been going under the radar. But the fact that the single player is going to diverge from the multiplayer and they're no longer, there's always been a little bit of a difference, but I feel like them just kind of pronouncing it and just creating that expectation gives them freedom to go further with that if they need to. Because sometimes we've seen, and I think a good example is maybe Gears is not a good example, but we see like how maybe that's kind of hampered that franchise's ability to move forward, because people kind of expect a similar, controls and balancing and things like that. And I think doing this might give them freedom to kind of play around with it a little bit more. So anybody else want to jump in before I guess we move over? God, Mike, I know I was trying to save a thought that you were talking about, and now I forgot what it was. Would you remember?
No. I mean, I know I talked about the platform aspect, and I talked about the difference in balancing. Plus, if they're going to give me a trilogy in one package instead of 3 games, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I think that's where I jumped in on. So
I'm hoping the opportunities that we see from that is we get smaller, I don't know, kind of expansion DLC.
Yeah.
That bridge the larger. I don't want just consistent Destiny size expansions for the remainder of the 10 years. Like, I want game sized expansions. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a fan of this approach.
Right. Or maybe even some different types of expansions, some bigger, some smaller. Like, I enjoyed the Gears Hive Busters, but at the same time, that's not a replacement for a full campaign either, right? That is just a nice little appetizer that comes through. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they handle that. I think I think you're right, Mike, that the expectations is people don't want to lose those, looking forward to full releases, just the vent that comes with that stuff. So yeah, it'd be interesting. There is some upside and downside, like we discussed with that.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, you could.
Did we discuss that? I think it was a Reddit leak. I think, and it was some person just dumped a whole bunch of stuff, like huge, hey, this is happening and this is happening. And in the mix of all this stuff that was leaked, it says that Halo's going to be delayed to 2022. Did we talk about that?
That is like
No.
What else did that guy say? He said something about
the genesis. The genesis of that leak is literally someone surmising stuff on the Xbox Era forum.
That's what I suspect.
Then it gets picked up, and it got picked up on 4chan, but listed as rumor and not somebody's surmising guesses. Then that rumor on 4chan got picked up on Reddit. So it was literally a guy on our forums.
It looks like someone's just collated a whole bunch of the current rumors that are floating around, kind of tweaked them here and there, and then somehow just threw in Halo's being delayed to 2022. And I'm just like,
it's just this giant aggregation of everything they could find around.
That's the way to be an insider, though. What you do is you take other people's leaks, right? Then you throw in some educated guesses, and then you throw in one or two things that are original that make it look like you have some breaking news.
Or what you do is you do what I do and make them all up.
And then you eat a 6-month ban.
And then you get banned for 6 months.
For Elden Ring.
Oh, you only
man.
got 6 months?
Yeah.
I
There's
think
only
they're being generous.
There's
Oh, I'm
only
permanent,
six.
so
Oh, good times. Who's permanent?
Oh,
Oh,
man.
I am.
Even
Oh.
I wouldn't say Halo's being
Wow.
delayed to 2022.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. I don't even.
I mean, they took a year off for graphics. They didn't take a year off to start the bloody game over again.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes no damn sense. And even if it did for some reason get delayed to 2022, they wouldn't even know that right now. There's enough
Exactly.
time. They should, at this point
Jesus.
in time, unless they're rebuilding the entire game, which they are not.
Yeah.
And that's
what I'm saying. 2022 would suggest they've started the game again.
And they canceled the Xbox One, and then Nick gets his point back.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man! All right, cool. So, so Nick, any thoughts on that before I move on to the grapple hook stuff?
No. Go on to the grapple hook.
All right, let's go on to the grapple hook. All right, but yeah, no, we're going to ignore bullshit rumors like when Elden Ring is going to release and anything on 4chan.
Yeah. Ignore all the made up stuff.
But
I knew nothing about Gearbox. I had a dream about it and just posted a tweet when I woke up.
Well, maybe you get some good premonitions.
That's the size.
I know. I mean, I dreamt about Sega last night.
What? All right. Well, maybe we should. Should we should we put this show on pause and talk about Sega and
no, and I don't care if I pronounce it wrong. I'm going to stick with Sega.
And I don't want to put myself on
Since when is
blast
Sega
here.
wrong?
Yeah, it's not the correct
But
pronunciation.
What?
Sega.
What's not the correct?
That is the correct.
Yeah, I
pronunciation.
mean,
yeah, he says Sega.
yeah, that's right. And I say Sega.
And he knows it's wrong. He doesn't care.
Sega.
I know
Oh,
it's wrong. I still say it.
And look, I don't want to put myself on blast here or get too off topic, but on the webcam that I snuck into Ed's house as I watched him sleep every night, I heard him saying, Teakland. Oh, do I like to?
Oh my god. Well, so the small handful of people that listen to our podcast got a breaking rumor. You never know where you're going to get it. All right, so we're going to keep moving on to the grapple hook. And so as they kind of went through the questions, there's a couple of things that came out regarding that, and they did talk a little bit about this new grapple hook that's added that we've all seen in the video. So they were talking about the fact that you could grapple hook on a Banshee to Skyjacket, that you can use it to pick up weapons on the ground. Obviously, you start thinking about that in the context of the sandbox. It does lend to some interesting possibilities. Proven, I'll start with you because I know that you are a big
Equipment.
You have.
He's a grapple shot enthusiast.
Yeah. You got opinions about this stuff. So let's go ahead and start with you. What did you think when you heard about all that?
Well, yeah, this stuff I kind of assumed was going to be in the game. Like, I figured they're not going to just put it just to grapple walls. So, but yeah, it was great to have confirmation that they're going to do that. And I think they said there's some other uses that they haven't discussed yet. And so I think that's great because I think the fact that it seems super powerful and it's going to be something you can go pick up on the map, kind of like a mini power weapon. I think that sounds really awesome, and I'm excited to see how it actually functions in the game.
Yeah,
when we actually see it.
It needed the utility stuff like this, right? Otherwise, it's if I'm grapple a wall and I can't shoot during that time, what's the point in the multiplayer map, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, I do want to ask you because you are more obviously you've been pretty loud about being a proponent of sticking with more of the classic sandbox and things like that, and never being a fan of the Spartan abilities. Some people from that side of things do have an issue with the grapple hook. They think it could be a problem in terms of the game balancing, this and that, or add too many things into the sandbox. Do you see that as a potential issue, or because it's a pickup, you don't really see that as
I think, if it's super powerful, if it's something where it's just it kind of ruins the game, it could be overpowered. But I think the fact that it's like let's just say on a regular map, if there's only one grapple hook, so at most one person has it at a time. Like it causes less scenarios. Like if this was like an ability where 8 people had it, like I could see an issue where like everyone's flying around the map and grabbing stuff. It could be crazy, but I think the fact that it's basically a mini power weapon, like they can make it a little bit more powerful without making the game too chaotic.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Do we think
Daniel-
it will be in multiplayer?
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think that they will have their multiplayer that's just a sandbox of go have fun, be crazy. It's not going to be as balanced as the esports version of it, where I would imagine there's probably no pickups.
I'll be playing SWAT anyways. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I feel like the grappling hook will be something like, depending on who uses it, its functionality is either amazing or completely useless, right? Like, let's say you pick up the grappling hook and you're like, let me just grapple to this wall. It's one-time use, it's gone. Someone else picks it up, holds it until they really need to use it. A weapon just spawns, they grab it before anyone else can, and they change the game. You know, it really, that's what I like about it. It's a lot of room for versatility.
Yeah, it just depends, because I know for Halo Reach, like the hardcore mode, they actually put the armor abilities on the map. So like the evade, which was like a ability the elite spawned with, they've actually put that on the map. And if you picked up evade, like really good players would use evade with like some serious like crazy map movement. So I could see the grapple hook kind of being similar to that, where it's like the skilled players they're gonna go run to that like as soon as they spawn, because like, okay, I have to go pick that up.
Which they're already doing for power weapons and overshields and
That's it.
camouflage.
I just see equipment in Infinite as like mini power weapons, where like they're probably not as useful to get kills as like a rocket launcher, but like if you use it in specific ways, you could really like do damage with it.
Yeah. It all comes down to their balancing, right?
Yeah.
Daniel, how about you, man? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for me, it really highlights how mature their physics model would be in this if they're able to. I mean, if it's as wide-reaching, no pun intended, as it's implying in the blog. I mean, if you can grab weapons, you can hijack banshees, you can use it more as just more than just traversal, but you can use it to actually, like Proven was saying, change the tide of a match. That excites me, because then that tells me that their physics model is more than just it's more than just going to be to have collision detection on points of a wall, or specific points around the map, but it on everything, and that can also affect everything else. I think that's fantastic. We'll have to wait and see how the balancing between the single player and multiplayer comes out with that, but I think it could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of what people really wanted, initially from the classic Halos. It's really taking the heart of Halo, which was a sandbox, and just making it more advanced. And I remember even some classic players talking about adding additional physics, and it does sound like, and when we get into our next area, which is the the vehicles, they kind of elaborate on that. It does sound like there is a more sophisticated engine on this. Mike, any thoughts on that? And I think that was actually a good point. Like, what's your thoughts on like physics and the?
I like turtles.
I do.
Who doesn't?
No, the one thing that stuck out to me that I was really happy about was both people in the interview were strongly indicating that using it to hijack a Banshee was not like an instant win. Like the conversation made it sound like it required some skill, and that
they said,
and stuff like that is really, that kind of goes along with what you guys are talking about with the physics, but just also it's going to add options, but it's not. I don't know. I like the lock on for the vehicles is one of the things that kind of annoyed me with the rocket launcher, just because it really killed the use
skill
of some anything that you can take down that doesn't require any level of skill. I don't know, that's a drawback or a step back in my opinion. So yeah, I'm eager to see how they how it plays out, especially because the original demo made it seem very rigid, if that makes sense. It's like no matter where you were, you were being pulled into, other than the fusion coil, you were being pulled into the direction. And it didn't really seem like there was much physics in play there. It just looked like it was a magnet. But I'm eager to see how it plays out.
And that's a really good point. I think that was probably out of everything in the demo they showed in July. From a gameplay standpoint, I did like most of what I saw. Obviously, graphics were a different story, but that was the one thing that did kind of bug me, because when you're just hooking onto an elite that's probably weighing less than you, and then you pull yourself to them, that kind of was like that didn't make much, that didn't feel right. So I do hope they can really balance that stuff, so that obviously it makes more sense to pull yourself when you're hooked onto a vehicle versus I don't want to pull myself to grunt. So but that might end up being
yeah.
Well, 'cause
Can I ask something? Do any of you guys play Fortnite?
I do not.
Here and
I
there.
try
No,
not to.
Because Fortnite has a grappling gun hook thing. They introduced it, I think, a season or more ago or whatever. And it sounds like it works the way you guys are describing the way the Halo one might work. Like, you can use it to bring you closer to an enemy. You can use it to get yourself on top of a house. You can use it to grab a weapon before someone else gets to it. And it doesn't seem to have broken Fortnite. Like, if anything, hardly anyone uses it. But then Halo's a little bit different. Smaller arenas. It's not, I don't know. But yeah, they sound very similar.
If I remember correctly, the one on Fortnite, it's like a plunger gun, basically, and it has limited uses, I think.
Yeah. You get 9 or 10 uses. Yeah. And it hasn't really broken anything there. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not really worried about anything breaking the game. I mean, going back to the first thing we talked about, if it breaks the game, they'll just remove it.
Yeah,
that's I think
worst case there will be the core Halo, right?
Yeah, you're probably going to have a mode that has very limited power weapons or weapons in general.
Well, the thing is,
limited radar.
The thing is, so for Halo 3, for the hardcore mode, they basically took out all equipment and they took out like a lot of the stuff that was interesting about the game, because they wanted it to be really balanced. But for 343, they really seem like they really want the game that they ship to be the game that's competitive. For the first couple of seasons for the Halo 5 esports, like they insisted on the assault rifle being there, even though the pros didn't want that gun in the game. They eventually took it out, but I feel like first go around they're gonna have literally everything that's in the game is gonna be in the competitive mode, and then what is broken or balanced, they'll probably fix it, and then if that still doesn't work, they might tweak it and take it out.
I think I agree with Nick though on its impact. I think it'd be more useful than what you were describing in Fortnite, but you even think about if you think about some skill-based abilities, like using a ground pound, you don't see that very often, but because when you do see it, it's kind of like a highlight move. I can see some things happening with the grapple shot where, people are going to have videos with them being like highlight. It's like a dunk in basketball, right? Like when you dunk on somebody, when you can pull off that grapple shot of a vehicle moving or something like that. So I think it's going to lead to some fun things, but I fail to see it being, game breaking or anything like that.
I mean, technically,
you bring up a good point. You're probably right there. Like ground pound, I almost never see it used by anyone.
Right.
But when you do see it used, it's usually used well, often on you.
Yeah.
And you bitch and moan and complain about how OP it is and how you want it gone, even though no one ever uses it.
It's very... Yeah, it accounts for very few kills in a game, but it is something. It is like getting dunked on, right? In basketball, if somebody ground pounds you, it doesn't feel good. So,
and there was a grappling hook used that wasn't OP and it worked well. It was less because the balancing in Titanfall 2 was very good in having the people varied it up. There were good options. So even if it's very strong, if other options are very strong, then it all ends up being fine. You just have fun anyways.
I mean, Titanfall 2 wise, I thought the grappling hook actually kind of messed with the map design too much. If you know what I mean. Titanfall 1 had this really tight map design where you could run across the entire map without touching the ground. Titanfall 2, if you wanted to do that, you needed the grapple hook, sorry.
I think they fixed that with a few of the newer maps, but I think in general the map design for 2 just wasn't. I think they were too busy trying to utilize all the new toys rather than.
It just wasn't good.
Agreed.
But this is not the Titanfall podcast, unfortunately.
You can see the pitfalls that you hope that 343 avoids based on things like that.
Right.
I think that's a great point, though. I mean, no, you guys are bringing up an excellent point to kind of worth stopping. And I think that's probably the biggest fear. It's not so much like, hey, is it going to be overpowered but where it can break a game is when developers, when they build the level design around things like that. And I think that's where you can kind of ruin. And that's always the tough part when you start adding new things to the sandbox. You got to think about how does this balance out with everything else. I think, like, for example, I'll give you one example. Like in Halo 5, I thought I felt like they wanted to force you to use your clamber ability, right? They built everything kind of at a certain height so that you had to jump and clamber, and it kind of messed with the flow of a lot of the maps. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the maps didn't feel amazing. Like a lot of people, me included, really liked how the game plays in Arena, but at the same time, the maps leave a lot to be desired. So you just hope that when they add these things in there, that they're not that it's not breaking the flow of the gameplay within the maps. And so
that is another big help from the year delay too, is it's that much more time to work on balance, because you can see it in something like Overwatch where there are movement abilities, and so often those movement abilities all end up at roughly the same height. And so then the map's built and you use this movement ability from multiple characters, and they all, if you use them right, all bring you to that same height, so you can get to that same part of the map with them. So being able to have more time and just go over it and over it and over it, and like they had playtests with pro players and streamers that were hinted at.
Yeah.
And you keep getting to do that for years and years. And the people who are really good at doing this, they help you make sure things are fair and that there isn't just one by far the best ability.
I feel like hopefully, sorry.
I was going to say, hopefully the delay allows us to get some flighting going
on. That's just
among the players.
I was just about to say that.
I think around July or August, we'll see. Hopefully.
You reckon that late?
I was thinking like before E3.
No, I'm thinking of June.
I was about to say, I reckon, what are we in now? February? I reckon before May, we should have something.
Well, it's going from not having any plans for it to now having plans for it. So I thought that if they're going to do it, and they've talked about it like they are, it would be something closer to, late spring, early summer.
Yeah,
E3
that's
time.
what I was thinking too. I mean, they mentioned they're doing internal flighting already. But I feel like a lot of times people think of the 1 year Halo delay, and the only thing they think of is the campaign, right? But if the multiplayer,
this helps the multiplayer a lot.
Exactly. If the year delay lets us do a public flighting, that's a huge help to the multiplayer.
Oh yeah. And I guess we talked about Halo coming to PlayStation and Switch, right?
We're gonna get to that later.
I downloaded it on Switch the other day. It's good.
You almost know the people that were predicting that whatever they say, usually opposite happens. But anyways, but Austin, I started with you, and I know we didn't give you a lot of time to talk on it, so I wanted to come back to you real quick. Did you have any other kind of final thoughts on that topic?
No, well, quickly about the map design portion. I think when you have the grappling hook being at most one person has it, you kind of have to map design doesn't have to be thought as much when you're thinking the grappling hook, because if everyone had the grappling hook, then you'd be okay, well, we have to account for someone being able to grab a point at all times. Well, because for Halo 3, if I use the grav lift, it's just me using it, so the map doesn't have to be designed around me using it. Whereas like if
Sure.
everyone had it, then it's like, okay, everyone they have to make the map design around that. So I think that's like an advantage of it being equipment.
So they'll just make like the playground, and then they'll let people do what they do with the grappling hook.
Yeah, like I that's the thing. That's like the thing I didn't like about Halo 5. I felt like they made the maps around like the abilities, which I didn't like that much. So I'm hopefully for Infinite, like it's not like they're making a map that's obvious. Like, okay, they made this map with the grappling hook in mind. Like it just feels like a map that I could play on. You know?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. All right, cool. So anybody have any final thoughts before I move on to the vehicle section? No? All right,
Oh.
we'll go on to the vehicles. And this really ties back into, physics and, some of the things that we were just talking about. But it did say that Warthogs could be damaged in other ways than just general damage. In the gameplay reveal, we see a Warthog lose its front left wheel, for instance, and there'll be more like that they plan to show later on. So I guess this just brings up again another aspect, a layer that goes into the sandbox and takes what was the previous classic sandbox and add some more dimensions to that. So anybody have any thoughts about vehicles and what this could mean? Mr. Nick, since you are new to the show, I'll let you kind of start something. Do you have any thoughts about the vehicle side of things?
Not really. I think one of the other episodes I was on, we had talked about it. I don't know. I'm neither here nor there on the vehicles in Halo. Probably because I hardly ever used them.
Yeah.
Like even when they were a big part of it, they just weren't really a thing I ever used much. Outside of maybe traversal. Like I never used them strategically, so I was never really, I don't know. I guess I don't have the experience to talk about them properly.
Yeah, saying I'm probably in a similar boat. I played 2,000 hours in non-vehicle modes and, and very little in vehicle mode, so I get that. So I know that you've always been a vehicle guy. Did anything they say like excite you about this, or make you think anything different, or is it just kind of like, hey, that's neat, and it's not really going to affect the game too much?
I mean, I think this was the first time they specifically mentioned the driver's wheel blowing up, right? For example.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. When they were doing, like they said it was in the gameplay review.
Yeah, it was. People brought it up
right at the end.
Yeah,
right
some people
when
said
suicide grunt.
Yeah, you'd have to pause. It was only like 4 frames or something.
Okay.
But yeah, some people were like, no, it's not actually there. No, they're not actually doing that. So it's nice to see that they did confirm that, yes, indeed, certain parts of the vehicle are blowing up more than others. I feel like this does go back to physics, which is a great sign, right? That they're doing this. But also, I feel like it also increases some of the stuff you can do, or maybe decreases. Let's say you have a ghost and you, I don't know, ram a certain enemy type or something. Maybe only that side of the ghost is getting damaged, or you know what I mean? There's a lot of possibilities they can do here.
Yeah, I was going to say, with them working with Turn 10, they talked about, tessellation of ground and the suspensions reacting differently based on the physics around the new model. I think having a wider array of effect on vehicles could potentially change the game. I mean, strategically, I'm a huge vehicle guy in modes that have them, Banshee, Ghost, Scorpion, all that kind of jazz. I typically use them more than just for the weapons that are on the vehicles. With the Ghost, I mean, it's a ramming rod, right? So 100%. like having this new change could directly affect how I approach those same situations.
Now that I think about it, damageable vehicles, so far at least in any Halo game, the only way to destroy, say, the turret on a vehicle is by destroying the entire vehicle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So could this mean that now you can target maybe just the turret, for example?
I thought about that. Yeah.
Well, when they talked about it, he talked about going after the wing on a Banshee. So it definitely seems, it seems like they are going for that. A bunch of different areas that all have different effects.
Technically, you could take out the little wings and the Banshees before it too, but now will it mess with actual flight?
More like a force.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, like it'll actually have more, instead of it just being this, it goes from one mode to blown up. It's, you have all these little damage areas you can go after that have their own list of adverse effects.
And it sounds like it's more than just aesthetic. It sounds like
Yeah.
it's actually going to affect the drivability or the functionality of said vehicle.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, when you extrapolate what they mentioned, they're losing its front wheel. I mean, there's no point in doing that if it's going to drive the same,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
I mean, so Mike, you've been quiet on this, which is unusual. So why don't you jump in? Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, you guys have been pretty much covering it real well. This is another. I know they focused on, or only I think they only mentioned weapons before, but I think vehicles again, especially with this larger lean on physics or the physicality of it, I guess, or reaction of it, tweaking it different between campaign and multiplayer. You know, that's going to be another. I'm assuming they're going to do it in that way, because I'd hate it if, I don't know. I think vehicles should probably be tougher for the campaign than the multiplayer.
Oh, for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So, stuff like that. But it's weird that I
You
wonder
gotta
how
drive
they're
all
gonna.
I was gonna say you got to drive all the way to the other side of the map with a flat tire. That'd be a pain in the ass.
That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was. The next thing I was going to talk about, like, I think it was in the last podcast that we talked about scenarios where you have to use a vehicle,
Right.
or environments where it's not practical to run. So, I kind of go back to, how is that going to be dealt with within the campaign? Because if you have a flat tire and you're driving on 3 tires.
Okay, this is actually weird. Okay, so this is kind of off topic, but I recently bought the Halo Infinite Warthog, like the little toy, and I noticed on the back of it that there's like gas cans and like different like mechanical stuff. I'm kind of interested if maybe they'll do something where like you have to repair your Warthog or
State of
something,
Decay
or like
style?
maybe like fuel it up. Like that would be kind of annoying, but I'm just curious. They do something
You
like
press
that.
down on the D-pad, go into build mode, and then once you get next to the vehicle, it turns into a little torch, and you hold it, and a circle goes, and there you go.
You know what? That
I
actually.
wonder if they're going to go full crisis mode and you can shoot the gas cans on the back to blow up the whole Warthog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too.
And if they're trying to be realistic, that doesn't actually happen in real life.
Yeah, cars don't blow up. Though, you know what, though? I can't stop thinking of something like, you see a ghost charging you, and if you hit it just right, its dash stops being usable. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer. Did we miss anybody that wanted to talk about the vehicle thing? Got Nick, Jesse, Austin, anything else?
How about you, Poochie?
Poochie.
Who the hell is that? No, he doesn't have any thoughts on it. All right, yeah. I mean,
Wait,
really,
sorry.
the only thing that came. Oh, go ahead.
Really quick, sorry, one bad. This is technically a different topic, but it's just something that came to my head when Jesse mentioned it. Do you guys think we'll ever see Forge implemented in single player?
Yes.
In the sense that you can create your own things in the campaign?
Yes, I feel like that's going to be a separate show, and we're going to have to bring on.
Yeah, let me write this down. I'll bring this up next time.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. I think that's been a speculation. I know it's been something that people have thought about, and you see it in other games, like Halo's version of Mario Maker, I guess.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot.
Well, and I was thinking more like Fallout 4.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think there's a good reason to speculate on that, but it's going to be its own show, own topic, I think. So yeah, just kind of finish up on the vehicle stuff. I think you guys covered it all pretty well. The only additional point that I would think about is, and it just goes back to the physics in general. It's like, all right, this is really cool that they're adding this to the vehicles. Obviously, there's only so many things I think that you can run additional physics on and have it still run on the Xbox One, much to Nick's detriment. So you wonder how much is left over for other things. But for a while I've been wanting to see more levels of physics added to the environment. Like I remember there was some really limited things they did with Halo 2 initially, but at the time felt like something, but they, obviously they've never really gone that far with physics in there, and that does change the balancing aspect. But I do think it's worth hoping for, to see if there is going to be some additional levels of, maybe destructible environments, different things that could change the balance. And I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. So I'll go ahead and move over, because I know we are already up to an hour. So we want to go ahead and move on to the weapons aspect. So I'm going to just, instead of going through each of these bullets one by one, I'm just going to read off all of them and then let you guys kind of jump in and what really stands out to you. So they talked about the new and classic weapons will be added over time to the game, as well as various updates to existing weapons. One thing they mentioned was the spike grenades have blades, so when you stick something with it, it does instant damage even before exploding. So grunts will die in one hit just from the stick itself before the explosion even happens. They did talk about the classic shotgun. They believe there is room for the classic shotgun in the sandbox. In addition to the bulldog that was shown in the video, I think a lot of people have speculated that, maybe with the bulldog there wouldn't be a classic shotgun, especially with 343 talking about not having these weapons, be too similar like they might have been in Halo 5 and 4. So, but he did say there is a new, never seen before weapon filling the role of the classic shotgun at the moment, and there are of course many weapons they've yet to show. Another thing they mentioned is if we want to bring a legacy weapon back, we want it to play like how it did in the classic games. An example being when they said being the Magnum back in addition to the sidearm they have now. It feels like classic Magnum rather than being like how the Magnums in CE 2 and 3 all play very differently. They basically said they want fans to be able to recognize it when they add it in. And then the final bullet point on weapons was he mentioned the sidekick pistol. It's similar to the gunfighter in Magnum and Halo 5. He did confirm multiple types of damage types. I think we talked about that last time. The Ravager, for instance, is a red plasma brute weapon, which burns hotter and overheats faster. So that was a new thing. And he said there would be other types of plasma and damage types in the game as well that they'll elaborate on later. So that's a bunch of different things. I won't have to touch on everything, but out of those things, is there anything that sticks out? Again, I am going to start with you again, Proven, just because, again, I know this is like kind of your passion area. So some of the weapons balancing. So I'll let you begin. Like, what sort of things did you hear in that really stuck out to you?
I mean, the spike grenade thing was interesting to me, but the only thing when I was thinking, like, if you stick someone, like, they're gonna die anyway. So I'm just kind of curious how like that actually works. I guess you could, if they're really low shields, you throw it at them and they die before it explodes. Yeah, I think, like, the way I've always envisioned Halo Infinite is it's going to be a game with, like, they're going to eventually bring back every weapon. Like they're going to have the Halo Combat pistol eventually. They're going to have the brute shot. Like, they're going to have everything. So, like, the way I envision Infinite's kind of like the culmination of all the Halos kind of into one. So I think, like, that's kind of what I think of when I think about that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, a good point. On your point of the spike grenades, normally when you stick like an enemy, they usually get to run a little bit after you stick them. So this just means, I guess, they hit the ground right when you stick them. So I guess that could change. It could change some things in the balancing aspect. Although I always like to see people run back into their friends and then blow up. How about you, Mike? What's your thoughts? Anything kind of stand out to you specifically in the weapon balancing?
No, not really. I mean, I like how they're making different, I guess, subdivisions with the plasma. That's kind of that's not really too new. They've done that before. Like, Bungie's done that, but we'll see how far they take it. I'm playing. I don't know. It's all good. That's my thoughts.
Right.
No red flags.
Daniel, what about you, man? Any thoughts on the weapons?
Yeah, I mean, I think having the full collection is nice. I think that as it's a platform of Halo for 10 years as they anticipate it being, I think that was an eventuality anyway. And I normally I would be a little bit more skeptical just having some of those weapons back that weren't balanced, but knowing that they are going to be a different balancing provision for campaign versus multiplayer makes me feel a little bit better about that. So, like Mike, I'm curious to see how the different plasma, kinetic, and whatever additional damage type they mentioned, how that will actually play out in you know in on the ground battles, and also how they are actually different, because so many of the time, somebody will say, hey, we're doing a new damage type, and it's really just, it's just a new visual effect for the same type of effect. So hopefully this is actually different, and hopefully that'll build new strategies around those.
So I just thought of something. So we've been talking about like this thing being a 10-year platform and stuff. In a typical, like, say, trilogy setup, part 2 and 3 will have additional weapons, so on and so forth. With this being a platform, let's say we do get our game-sized expansion in like 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you guys think about new weapons being introduced in that expansion, but now they're kind of backported in a way to the beginning of the game? Like basically I wonder how that would play out, whether or not that would change any kind of balancing or change any kind of.
You mean for the campaign, like specifically?
Yeah. Like if they introduce new weapons in an expansion that's, the pseudo sequel, let's say, the second major update, or however way they're going to frame it. Granted, they can keep it completely separate. They can make it so that the original campaign will always be the original campaign. But I don't know. I just wonder if they're going to try to add some.
It's kind of, because I know for Destiny, it's like you always have your whatever weapons you have on, like they're always with you. But for Halo, it's like you pick them up in the sandbox. So that would be like really. I guess they could like just like swap them out or something. But like I actually don't know how they would do that. That's a good question. I've never even thought about that.
Well, the way that this is set up and the way that the map looked, I have always wondered if they are going to have hubs where you can go in, you can get vehicles, you can choose the weapons you want. If you have something like that, it gives you an easier way to get newer vehicles, newer weapons, and stuff like that back into the campaign, as you're adding things as years goes along.
I think it's actually a great topic, Mike, that you brought up, and it almost is like a separate thing, and you could almost do a separate speculation, meaty topic on this particular thing. And I'm hoping they do drop some information. But even on the PC, like if you looked around, the PC like has mods where they change like some of the balancing, some of the. There was like a big. I watched a video on one that came out where they redid Halo CE with all these different weapons, and people said it was really fun, and it made it like a new game. And recently a game that I booted up for the first time ever with mods was Skyrim. I haven't got too far back into that because I don't have much time for that right now, but it is interesting to think about what Halo could be as you maybe, because their campaigns have always been very replayable. So seeing as they add different weapons, or seeing what maybe the community could do with like mods, I think it'd be very interesting with the PC community if they do give them the ability, or give everybody the ability to tweak things within the campaign. Hopefully that is something that happens. Anybody who didn't get to speak about the weapons want to speak about the weapons? No? Yes.
I was going to say, because something I kept hearing everyone say, and I've always wondered why. Everyone keeps mentioning this 10-year thing. Has 343 ever said anything about 10 years?
Yeah.
I think
have they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like in the initial announcement.
I don't ever recall them actually ever mentioning 10-year plans. I think that was just something everyone assumed based on what they think Infinite is.
I remember being
343 calls the start of the next 10 years for Halo.
I have
That's a quote.
I could read it.
They have a Halo waypoint blog post, or no?
Okay, so in July or whenever, Chris Lee, he said Infinite will grow over time as the start of the next 10 years for Halo, and then building that as we go with her. So I think what he's saying is Halo Infinite's going to be like, it's kind of like the beginning of a 10-year plan, and I guess everyone's assuming that it's going to be like Warzone or something where like it goes on for a while, but like I'm assuming they're eventually going to release a sequel, but it's not going to be like every 3 years like the previous Halos.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's in combination with the fact that Forza Motorsport is also intended to be a platform title.
Yeah.
So I think that in combination with Chris's statement and 343's general statement, I think has led everybody to think so.
And their tech focusing on keeping game file size down, both between not having to run it off a disk anymore, so you don't need any redundancy, and also some of the direct ML machine learning stuff they're doing, where you have a very small image file that's been trained to get up-res to the 4K version of it, are the things that keep the bloat down that Destiny is suffering from, where they had to cut out a ton of content that people still liked playing and had paid for.
Dumb decision.
Because the game was going to be like 160 gigabytes, and they were trying to avoid that.
That is interesting.
Back to the weapon topic really quick. One thing I wanted to mention was I feel like 343 has this really big challenge in front of them. Not even just that they're making Halo, but in that they need to make a game mode or a few game modes that are attractive enough and last long enough to warrant all the old weaponry coming back and the classic weapons and everything. Because if it's anything like Halo 5, just because there's every single weapon in the Halo series in the game doesn't mean that that's the game mode that's being played by the people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or it's the right way to even do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's
and that's why
challenge.
even if they do add on additional weapons, let's say they add on the additional weapons for the second update into the first campaign.
Yeah,
I'm hoping there's like a default mode or something. Maybe
there has to be
a legacy version.
Yeah, kind of like because you balance a typical Halo campaign. Okay, a good Halo campaign has like the firefights balanced based on the weapons that are made available.
Yeah,
and that's part of the sandbox.
I'd argue every Halo game does that by design.
Yeah,
even Halo 5.
I guess
it has hidden weapons, right? Hidden power weapons, where you turn left instead of going right, and you find a binary rifle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like the whole sandbox, like the replayability with the Halo campaigns has largely been based on how well designed that sandbox has been recreated over and over and over again. And so hopefully they put a lot of thought in any changes they make.
I feel like there's no reason to even go back and change the original campaigns, even after you add more content. Because it's still narrative, it's still story-driven based, right? So...
Yeah, but I think Mike's talking about the firefights, being balanced around the tools at hand is kind of how they determine how many AI are in the play, how many vehicles are on the field.
What I mean though is that like when Halo Infinite comes out, let's say it has a 15-20 hour story main campaign. Let's say 4 months later they release another 5-hour campaign. That 5-hour campaign release or that update release doesn't have to affect the original 20-hour campaign, you know?
No, but I just mentioned earlier about the possibility of it, like them backporting or updating the original campaign with
if it was
new weapons that
use expansions.
And it could be one of those. I mean, it can be beneficial. It could breathe new life in the original campaign.
Yeah.
I just hope they put a lot of thought into how that's going to affect the ebb and flow of the.
Yeah, and to be honest, they're already kind of difficult, considering that this is the first Halo game where you can go to encounters with who knows what weapon, what gear, because it's not as linear as the previous games have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mike, just to piggyback off what you said, I think we talked about it in the last show too. And I'll be honest with you, just kind of my final thoughts on the weapon thing. It's probably out of all the updates, the thing that doesn't move me that much, because in my opinion, I still really liked. One of the things that really stood out to me with Halo when I first played it, the CE franchise, it didn't have more weapons than everything else out there. They just were different, and they all had a purpose. And I think we talked about that last time. And so really until I started seeing how these things affect the sandbox, which based on what they described, it's kind of hard to picture right now. I think you have to be playing the game to really get an idea. It's going to be hard to really, based on descriptions, get too worked up on the weapons, because more is not better. I do hope that I do like that they're including all this stuff, because for mod purposes, like to you, what you were saying, like it'd be kind of neat if somebody goes back and takes some classic weapons and maybe rebalances a game with a mod or something like that, or does some cool forge game types with old weapons.
Yeah.
But in terms of the initial base game, it's just going to come down to quality over quantity, which Halo always needs to rely on, and everything having a purpose. So I don't get excited about hearing about two different shotguns. Hopefully they're very different, and right now we don't have much context on that, so I'm not worried about it. But it doesn't excite me either. So I guess that's kind of where I'll leave it. And as, by the way, anybody who's listening to the show, Soul's internet did cut out for 40 seconds when I was talking, so it was nothing big. So any final thoughts before, I know we're going long like we always do. I want to go try to move us along to the last couple of news items so we can have time for community questions. So there's a couple of things that came out over the last week. One, there was a big to-do about a job posting, which it looks like it was later cleared up by who is it, John from the community team, that there's a job posting related to like a new role for a new aspect of Halo. I can't remember how they worded it exactly. It was later cleared up that they're not, that new Halo Infinite role wasn't for like a new spin-off. At least that's what they're claiming right now. But it did get a lot of people in the community talking, about some potential with spin-offs and things like that, because that isn't something that's come up much. And then in addition to that, we just learned that Halo 2 or Halo Wars 2 is now being discontinued, so there's not going to be much happening on that front anymore. So it does look like they're now all hands on deck with Halo Infinite. So my question to everybody here is, first of all, like when you first heard about the new role, was there anything you were really hoping for? And is there things that you are still hoping for in terms of 343 being allowed to do some Halo spinoffs? What are some things you like to see in that regard? And then realistically, do you see that happening? Or is it maybe because Halo is so modular that they just don't feel like they need to, to do that kind of thing? So let's do a round table and just get kind of general thoughts on that. Daniel, let's go ahead and start with you on this one. What is kind of your general thoughts on those aspects?
Well, to start out with, I think we have seen a string of LinkedIn position changes and new hires that always seem to spur the and departures from 343 that always spur a new story from somebody. So I've kind of gotten jaded, and anytime something new's mentioned, I just kind of ignore it. I did see this, and I saw Unishek's reaction, his updated tweet about how, hey, this is just related to Halo Infinite. I think that over time we might see some. I'm still hoping for some new spinoffs. I'm still hoping for. Nick had that wonderful dream of Sega being brought into the fold. So I'm still hoping for a day when Creative Assembly gets to do a Halo Wars 3, because 2 was amazing. And, I think for me, that was the worst news from the batch, was the fact that there is no plan for a Halo Wars 3. But I'm hoping that, if because 343 has also grown a lot over the past 3 years, and I'm hoping that continues, so that maybe they can break out into pods to do something additional aside from just live update team for Infinite and whatever expansion team that they've got built for new content. I'm hoping that they see that there is a market for something like another ODST.
Yeah,
I think that would be fantastic. I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, there's no sign that that's the case yet, but I'm hopeful. But obviously, it's definitely not from this job posting.
Yeah, you're right about that. We probably really, it's just an excuse for us to think about it. But we know,
No, and that's totally fine. I just, I'm glad that we aren't to the type of people who will write a 2-page article about some new job pointing to a new Halo game or a new platform that it's going to be coming to. So.
Or Halo going to PS5, which will be the next topic. No, good point, Sir Daniel. So, how about you? What do you think about that?
I mean, for the most part, that rumor is pretty much debunked. That there's a new Halo game. I do think though that the wording of the job opportunity, and the fact that we know that it's related to Halo Infinite instead, means, and this might be me reaching here a little bit. In fact, it is me reaching, that we might see some possibly non-traditional expansions in Halo Infinite.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
Yep, and I wanted to go there too, but it's good. Yeah, go ahead and elaborate on that, because I think that's
it's hard to elaborate on something that I kind of pulling out of thin air. Like, what does non-traditional even mean? When I think about it, does it mean ODST? Does it mean like a different set of characters? Does it mean like a different location? There's a lot of things.
It's a cover shooter now.
Yeah, right. It's got to be a first-person shooter, right? They're not going to release a non-first-person shooter expansion in an FPS game, right?
Actually, I'm going to go to Nick on this one, because I think there's some websites that are bored and need to take a prediction and make it a rumor. So, Nick, what's your thought? He's on mute. Nick, what's your thoughts on that? Any kind of hopes or beliefs when it comes to how spinoffs, or how Halo will keep progressing in that regard?
Oh, I'd love spin-offs. I want that Lego Halo game to come back, and I don't know. I think they could do all sorts of stuff, but it's funny with other platforms. Do you think so? Obviously, we all know that the Halo multiplayer is separate, and you guys have all said many, many times how it's free to play, and they want to get it in as many hands as possible, and blah 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 blah. Do you think they just put the Halo multiplayer on other platforms?
Yes.
So is it possible?
Absolutely not.
Maybe, and I know this is going to sound stupid and crazy and whatever, but do you think it's possible they could put the Halo multiplayer, the Infinite multiplayer, on PS5, on
Switch Pro,
whatever, PC,
I think
Switch Pro,
the only
just a multiplayer?
Their stuff will only be on places that Game Pass.
Correct.
I was going to say the same thing.
Everything 100%. If you do Game Pass, sure, we'll put other stuff in there, and then your Game
But the
Pass
multiplayer is free though.
Yeah,
but
and
then
that's
your
exactly
perks
like I
play
was.
into it. I know the multiplayer is free, but that change alone isn't going to make anything multi-platform for a first party that has only ever been on Xbox. Because in the long run, you can still only play that on a phone if you subscribe to Game Pass, because then you get Xbox games through that. You don't just get an Xbox Android version of Halo Infinite without streaming it through the xCloud.
And furthermore, I would posit that with PC, with mobile, via Game Pass, especially since iOS will have it in the spring via Safari browsing. I mean, the kind of like what Phil has said time and time again when asked about, do you need to put Bethesda titles on PS5 to make your money back? His answer is always no, because the platform base of PS4 and PS5 and Switch compared to the totality of mobile and PC and Xbox, it's a drop in the ocean. So I just don't think there's a need to.
Yeah, I know, but like, because the multiplayer is free, it's not like that. The multiplayer is not a Game Pass driver. It's effectively independent of Game Pass. The campaign is a Game Pass driver, but the multiplayer isn't. So what if 343 and Microsoft's goal for the Halo multiplayer is to be another Fortnite or another Warzone?
It kind of is
own thing, like to just become its own thing, completely independent of a Halo campaign. It's just a thought. I'm just saying, like, just something to mull over. Like, I just wonder if that's their ambition.
That's the type of thought that gets Phil annoyed, because in the end he'll say, "We never get anything from any of the other platform holders."
Well, Jesse
so
says,
why do people keep expecting us to put stuff on other platforms when those other platforms are never putting stuff on ours? was,
I think-
when people kept asking about Ori, which we knew was coming and he knew was coming, but still, it's like, well, why can't we get something?
But they put
Also,
themselves in
They're
that
getting
situation.
MLB
though.
the show, aren't they?
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah, not by choice.
Can
that
I-
was
They're still
force.
getting it.
You can never talk again, Daniel.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
So I was going to say, we also have to remember that the reason Fortnite is on everything is because Epic, that's literally the only game they make. That is the only project that they have had for how many years now? 343 has MCC that they'll be upkeeping. They've got Infinite, and most of these developers, by the way, also have never developed on a Switch SDK or a PS4 or PS5 SDK. So the amount of effort that would go into being able to optimize for those platforms to have a good enough experience that 343 would be happy with, I think would be for such a minimal return.
Well, I mean, in this,
I was gonna say real quick. I think it took them 4 or 5 years to put Infinite. I would put a lot of strain on 343 to ask them, hey, go manage all these different platforms.
It doesn't
I
have to be
understand that
immediate, right? It could be after
no,
launch.
I get it. I just think it's one of those things where it's just if you want people to go into the Xbox ecosystem, putting Halo on another platform doesn't make sense. I'm sure you'll make a little bit more microtransaction money, but
okay.
Yeah.
I understand that logic,
but you don't.
I'll counter it. I'll counter it with my brand of logic. I'll counter it with my brand. So, who ported Rocket League to Switch? Was it Psyonix?
I don't know.
No, it
was not. It was Panic Button. Who's porting Apex Legends to Switch? It's not Respawn. It's Panic Button.
Yeah,
they're all part of that ecosystem.
So you're saying acquire Panic Button,
right?
No. I'm saying that what if they want Halo multiplayer on everything, so that Halo multiplayer is up there with Fortnite, Warzone, Rocket League, all those other free-to-play games. And yeah, maybe 343 can't manage porting it to PS5, but maybe someone else can.
But then if we throw in the equation of cross-platform, as much physics that are in the engine that we're hearing about, I mean, you're going to have to fork that again.
Well, it would be Switch Pro if he's talking about this. It wouldn't be the Switch. No way.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, you're not going to convince me that a Switch Pro can handle the physics or the IPC that.
Why not? Why not? If OG Xbox can, why not?
Well, I'm still on the fence that the Xbox One version will even be based and not actually xCloud. I don't know. I'm still.
Don't give Nick any hope. Don't give Nick any hope.
But I mean, okay.
I do got one thing to say about that, and I do think we should be careful, because this could actually turn into an hour-long topic that has nothing to do with really Halo. Nick,
this is what I do.
I know. This is we found a new squirrel, and we've gotten completely off the rails. But I will say, first I'll preposition this. Unlike most of the community, and I think this pisses people off when I say this, I don't care what's exclusive and what's not. At the end of the day, I do care about the success of Game Pass, because that is the thing that I really like about the ecosystem and the thing that I think they really bring. So whatever makes that successful in the long run, cool. I don't really care about who wins on Twitter with list wars and all that crap. Yep. But I will say that to Nick, to your point, I can see two different realities, and one of those where we're bringing some things over to PlayStation actually builds up the mind share of your IP, so that 5 years from now, 5, 6, 7 years from now, when 5G can help streaming become a more mainstream thing, all of a sudden now you're actually more empowered, and you actually are in a better position because your IPs now resonate more throughout the general community. So that isn't something I necessarily write off. What I will say that I don't think Sony would ever allow that. So that's why I feel like it's kind of, because I'll tell you why. Because because here's the thing: if you put your multiplayer on that, and it does the Fortnite blow up thing, the one thing Halo has that Fortnite doesn't have is a single player campaign that really drives mind share. And if you're going to constantly release campaign stuff that's going to Game Pass that's not on that platform. What you're going to do, what I would actually argue for you, if I was in the boardroom of Microsoft and with 343 and somebody said, hey, yeah, Sony's going to allow us to port it over there, I was like, yep, go find a team to do that. And because what's going to end up happening is you're going to now grow you could get to that Fortnite level if it is everywhere right now. And eventually, like to some of your guys' point, you won't need that because streaming will be a thing. It's not though. We're not in this technologically, we're not there to where most territories in the United States have
not yet.
the bandwidth or the data caps to make that a mainstream thing. At some point, yes, you won't even need them. And so to me, if I'm Sony, that doesn't help me at all. So I think they would just say no, because you're building up the mind share of something. And then the other half of that, it's almost like you're giving them a sample of something and then saying, if you want the rest of it, you got to come over here. And it's like, why, if I'm Sony, why would I even allow that into my ecosystem? I rather they've existed successfully for many years, for 2 decades, with Halo being exclusive to another console, and it hasn't hurt them. I mean, obviously it's helped Xbox, but I don't think that bringing that over there is going to could do anything long term. It's too much of a risk. So I say that it's almost a non-top. But that's my short answer on that.
If I could interject too really quick, I think 2 last points. I mean, we have to remember Sony is the company that told their own consumers for how many years, 5, 4, that EA Access was bad for them.
Oh yeah.
So if any of us think that Sony would be okay with having an Xbox branded title aside from Minecraft on there, I think we might be smoking something. But
Minecraft's the biggest game of all time, and it took them many years to finally let them start updating it to be up to par with everything else.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, the only reason that I'm not an exclusive fan, but I think what developers themselves and gamers can benefit from when there's less targeted platforms, because you have more time to optimize. And as similar as PS4 and Xbox One were, as similar as PS5 and Series S and X are in some regards, there's a lot, especially when we get into the machine learning weeds, or we get into any of the functionality efficiency boons of RDNA 2, things like that. There's again, that's a whole new fork.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So
it's from the best we know, and we don't know for sure, we may never know all the way, but Xbox is touting a bunch of RDNA 2 features that PlayStation is not touting. So in the longevity of this game over the course of its 10 years, you would think, as the GDK is constantly maturing nonstop, it'll never be finished. It's always getting better, that they will start taking advantage of that stuff in a way that if it's not on other platforms, it makes it harder, and it's that much more work to make things go, and it can limit you. And being stuck to, I am doing this for PC, where there's just way more power no matter what that I can target. I'm doing this for the cloud, which is going to run on our Series X server blades. And I've got the Series S and the Series X, and I've got these specific targets for 10 years. I know what's coming. You add in more platforms, it is a hell of a lot more work.
Even if you discount...
Again, sorry. No, I was just going to say, again, I go back to Fortnite as an example. It runs on everything, and as newer hardware comes out, it gets newer features. So the PS5 and the Series X have extra stuff that all the others don't have. And I just think you don't make a move as big as effectively breaking off Halo's multiplayer to be its own thing for no reason whatsoever.
I agree with you.
There's got to be a grander ambition there aside from just, we're going to make it free to play. Like, I don't know.
I'd argue that Fortnite is actually another reason to keep it exclusive. And in terms of the work argument, honestly, it's Microsoft. They have unlimited money. If they want to get something done, they'll get something done, right?
But they don't have unlimited people.
Yes, true. But you can contract this studio or that studio, as he said. But in terms of I feel like the existence of the Xbox Series S right away makes this a non-possibility.
Yeah,
because let's say you have a Halo game that is just as good as Fortnite, just as popular and whatnot. Well, not just as popular, but you know what I mean. Then you also have this entry point into your ecosystem. And as much as Phil Spencer and Microsoft says they don't care about console sales, they care about console sales. Because console sales...
He changed it to they do care.
Yeah.
It's just not as important as it used to be.
I mean, we've looked at
It's not that
recent
important.
earnings. Third-party earnings was massive, right? And that comes from console sales. Sorry, not console sales. Sorry, it comes from people playing on their ecosystem, on their consoles, playing Fortnite, Warzone, etc. So if you have a game that's good enough that people want to play it, and then you have a really low barrier of entry with the Xbox Series S, that doesn't just lead people playing the game, the population's high. It also leads to a surplus of people coming into your ecosystem, playing third-party titles on your box. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is itself a driver for Game Pass,
Yeah.
which is what everything they do is how does this drive Game Pass?
I mean,
And if we get
even
people
disbarring
who
Game
wanna play
Pass,
it-
it's a driver for Fortnite, right? Let's say you get a box for Halo because it sounds great, and Fortnite's there, Apex Legends is there, Warzone, etc. But all this third-party income is all there on your platform. That's a lot of money coming in.
Yeah, I see your point, so and I do agree with you that could be a case. The only thing I would ever, and again, I don't want to like have this go on for the next hour, but the only thing I would ever push back on is that there is multiple moving parts, and then like in the business world, like a lot of the things you say, like they sound really, really good. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. Like if you make this exclusive, we're going to get then people are going to have to come over here. But the thing that people like underestimate, especially when it comes to gaming, that like mindshare is a different thing. And also you're creating like pathways, right? Like you're trying to create on-ramps to your ecosystem, and sometimes that you have to go meet them people where they're at. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. Like I said, I don't believe Sony would ever even allow it. So I almost feel like it's just kind of a fun thing to talk about, but at the same, it's like the Game Pass thing. Like they're not going to allow it. So like it's kind of just fun to shoot the shit on it and say, well, what would happen if it did happen? But I could, like I said, I could see situations where because so much of Halo is still associated with the Xbox, that if they were able to go broad, which, okay, let's step back and think about that. That really is the plan. When you said there's other plans for Halo, like Nick, in the future to be bigger and to be separate, I think that is true. But they also realize that in, again, 5 years from now, somebody's going to take their DualSense controller with its drifting sticks, and they're going to hook it up to their TV. And they're going to hook it up to their TV, and they're going to go on the Xbox app, and they're going to be able to play Halo. So really, that's going to happen anyways. It's just a matter of, do they need to do it now or not? And I don't think Sony's going to allow it now, because they can see the same things in the future that.
I totally agree that it could be something Sony stops. I was more referring to Microsoft's ambition or Microsoft's side of the coin rather than Sony's. Sony might block it because
Well, if you listen to Nadella, he wants to be like, he doesn't give a shit. They care about the console as far as getting you into Game Pass. But otherwise, if you look at all his philosophies and what he did with Windows, how he brought a lot of his stuff to the Apple, all that stuff, they want to be everywhere. At the end of the day, they have limitations though, because where the gaming industry is. But I won't say anything else on that. Go ahead, you guys were saying.
I was just gonna add real quick. Like, I think the thing when people, this goes like the Bethesda thing where Daniel was mentioning earlier. I think people kind of like, PlayStation is obviously like a huge platform, but I think people like, it's not the biggest thing. Like mobile and PC and Xbox combined is way bigger than PlayStation. So I think the thing is, like, if I'm Xbox, I'm thinking, how do I draw people to the Xbox ecosystem to give me money? By putting Halo on PlayStation, getting like $10 for a battle pass, like that's not leading them to the Xbox ecosystem. That's just like, that's where I kind of
giving them money though.
It's indirect.
I know it's money, but the thing is, if they wanted money, they would put Hellblade 2 on PlayStation. They would there's more money.
It's not that binary though.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not that binary. Like, this is the thing. Like, Jesse's right. Everything is about Game Pass. Like, that's it now. Microsoft is 176% all in on Game Pass, and like that's it.
Yeah, I know.
Halo multiplayer is not Game Pass. It is a completely separate thing altogether.
Yeah, but see, I agree that they have bigger ambitions, but look at now, am I mistaken or am I wrong that when you play Fortnite, if you want your content to transfer, you need to link everything through an Epic account, right?
Yep.
So, there's no reason that in this imaginary scenario that even though it's free to play, it's still a driver for Game Pass on other platforms. And that can even be a selling point to Xbox. You want Halo multiplayer to really be free to play? Get it on Xbox or PC. Otherwise, your only other option is to get it through Game Pass streaming on your platform of choice. And that cuts down on the worry about developing for different APIs, different hardware. You want to play Halo multiplayer on PlayStation, you do it through Game Pass streaming. Otherwise, you get the better experience on local hardware.
I think the thing that I always come back to is like they want people in your ecosystem, and putting Halo on PlayStation, while that doesn't sound like a big deal, it does basically nothing to put. Like if I'm someone on Reset Era or something that only plays PlayStation, them putting Halo on the PS5 does nothing to draw me into the Xbox ecosystem.
But what I'm describing though isn't putting Halo on PlayStation. It's putting Game Pass on PlayStation.
I don't think that's how you have.
No, I know, but none of this is ever going to happen. That's why I said this make-believe scenario. That Halo would be a driving factor for Game Pass as much as Fortnite is a driving factor to Epic accounts.
So guys, I am going to try to move this one ahead, especially since this is never going to happen. I think it definitely is an interesting. No, it is an interesting discussion. And you guys, honestly, in 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, at some point it's going to seem irrelevant. So I wouldn't really stress out about it too much. But I do want to really quickly get back to. So we're going to skip some of the rumors about. Some of the stupid rumors about Halo to PS5, since we just covered that. But I did want to just see if anybody had any other thoughts about the spinoffs, because we got halfway through that, and I want to just give people a chance to say any kind of thoughts there. Or do we want to say that?
I would say, just based on how all in they are on Halo and have been for years, that any spinoffs are not coming anytime soon. It doesn't sound like anything's being worked on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. I think the thing is, when 343 and Bonnie Ross and everyone, they kind of took over the Halo franchise, I was expecting a lot more than what we've gotten. And I would say the last 10 years have kind of been a little disappointing, because we've basically gotten 3 mainline games and a couple spinoffs. So I'm hoping the next decade we get a lot more, because like this kind of reminds me of like the Star Wars pre-Disney Plus, where it kind of felt like they had so much opportunity, but they didn't do enough with it. Yep. So I'm hoping the next 10 years it gives us a lot more Halo stuff.
Yeah, a lot of that was also because of the engine. I mean, there was that interview that Bonnie Ross did with Ryan McCaffrey a few years back that, she specifically went to Phil and said, hey, we could do, a Halo 5 ODST type thing and another game after that, or we could go back because the creatives and the engineers were constantly at odds because of how much work went into every modification on that old engine. So I think that, we kind of fell into just a rut because content rut because of the fact that they had to rebuild an entire engine. But that's why.
Yeah, no, I think you guys bring up some good points. One of the things, hopefully we'll turn this over to Nick, and he can tell us what new studios Microsoft's going to acquire that's going to take over the spin-offs for Halo. I do think that with there's so many opportunities, and I've proven you made a really good point. Like the Halo universe is probably one of the few IPs in all of gaming that could be taken in many, many directions. A lot like a Star Wars could. And they've done some little things here and there. One of the things that I am hoping is that they like something that's people have mentioned in the past, like, well, hey, wouldn't it be nice if there was a Mass Effect like Halo spinoff, especially in this universe where there's so much story that goes unexplained. Like, you could really take your time and do some cool things there. But now they got all these studios, And one thing I do wonder, I don't expect, obviously with this job hire, I don't expect this to result in anything directly from that in terms of that kind of game. But, there is an opportunity here to take some creative teams to work with some of the other studios to, and I'm not, again, I don't think this is going to happen, but like, for example, Exile has that Wasteland 3 team. Maybe, you take a portion of 343, they work with them and create some little spin-off in
Halo Tactics.
Some RPG, I don't know, something like that. But that's just kind of a off the wall idea. I do think there are some other opportunities because this is supposed to be such a modular engine, and it's going to continue to stack on top of itself in terms of toys in the sandbox. So, who's to say you can't do like a mech assault in Halo? Just create a mode where you have all mechs and, like, hey, we can't get around the BattleTech license, but we're going to just make it in Halo and, have a team spin off and do that. Or, like, let's make Crimson Skies in Halo. Let's like just do like a bunch of jets and make it all space battles. And, so I think there's going to be a lot of weird opportunities. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, is like, does this platform need to be, everything need to be a first person shooter, or can they get creative and do, have other teams doing interesting things?
Like Cortana Vision.
Yeah.
Cortana and me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. So yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts on it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add one more quick point. I forgot when. I think I just remember Bonnie Ross at some point said that she saw Halo being as big as Star Wars, and when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I kind of like shrugged it off. Like, but the thing is that when you think about it, Halo could be so much. Like, it's big right now, but there's so much opportunity, and like they've done some books. Like they're gonna eventually do the TV show, but I felt like the last 10 years has been like a lot of ideas that haven't come to fruition. Like they talked about doing the TV show like 2013, and they're still making it. So I feel like they've had all these ideas, but they haven't been able to execute. So I'm hoping over the next 10 years they actually execute what they're planning to do.
Well, it's not still making it there. They are now full on in production making it.
Yeah,
it's coming, which is nice.
But they announced it like in 2012 or 13. Like they announced it a long time ago.
I mean, that's video games in media. Most of the time, it either takes forever, doesn't happen, and almost every time when it does happen, it's terrible.
I mean, look at how long games like Uncharted,
The Last of Us,
stuff like that. I mean, things take time when it comes to. I mean,
they have resources
gaming
now.
Properties.
Yeah, I think the difference.
I'm hoping that since Microsoft is really investing in Xbox, like Halo actually gets, because I don't think like 5 years ago Xbox would have invested this much in Halo because they didn't seem serious enough in gaming. But now that Microsoft has invested so much, I'm hoping that Halo can have a lot of interesting games and like spin-offs.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And again, I just emphasize they do have support now. They didn't before, so we know they rebooted that show like 3 different times over. God, I swear to God, they talked about it during the OG Xbox days. So we'll see if it finally turns out to be anything good. But Nick, what new studio are they going to acquire that's going to take over a Halo spinoff? Is that going to be Techland? Is it going to be Sega?
No, they'll get ID to do it.
Oh,
I'll just get ID to take over Halo wholesale,
that's just more FPS. No, that's not going to be ID.
I don't know. Maybe they'll get Sumo to make a Warthog racing game.
Cool. Racing game with one vehicle sounds kind of boring.
Well, no, they'd have the Mongoose would be in there, and you'd have the Brute Chopper as a vehicle, and you'd have all sorts of vehicles in there.
Yeah, no, you just called it.
You actually had a lot of
racing
variants
game.
of the Warthog in the Halo 5 eventually.
Oh, that's true.
In the Warzone.
Yeah.
The Warthog kart racer, like you could have one Warthog where like the banana peels come out the back, and
What?
Right. I'm thinking like Mario
The gas
Kart,
tanks
right?
drop off and explode.
I feel like
leave oil behind.
Halo Infinite is almost like a new beginning for the entire franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A franchise that's held its breath for a few years now, And when Infinite releases, we're going to see a slew of other content coming out. That's the feeling I have.
Yeah. All right, guys. I am going to try to. Did anybody have any final thoughts, or did I skip anybody that wants to say something?
My final thought is we should move ahead with the next thing.
Yeah, and I think everybody needs to use the restroom really bad now. So let's just hurry up with the final topic, and this is going to be regarding the MCC development and flighting update. And so there's a few different things to share on that. It says the Halo community update came out yesterday, and basically the MCC flighting is kicking off next week. The core details are as follows. If all goes well in rings 1 and 2, we plan to roll out our public flight as early as Thursday, February 18th. Some of the items we are hoping to include in this flight are custom game browser, which is quote unquote a new way to play with each other in MCC, not going to PS5, folks. Season 6 content, a new map for Halo 3 from Halo Online, FOV sliders support for all Xbox One consoles. FOV slider will no longer be locked when Xbox Series XS devices are set to 120 hertz. Double key bindings, mouse and keyboard support for consoles, advanced audio options, and view model customization options. So there's a bunch of things there. I guess we'll just go around real quick and see, like, does anything really stand out to you in that? Especially
as a user, I am very happy that I no longer have to go back to 60 hertz, change the FOV, to then go back to 120 hertz and have a new FOV. That's very good.
Very good. Sol, how about you?
I mean, I think the one thing that sticks out the most is a new map from Halo 3, right? Because I think this is the first time in the entire MCC's history that we've had completely new content. Not counting Reach, of course.
And not counting skins and whatnot, but yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, new gameplay content, I should say.
Well, what are the chances that this is going to be a Forge map?
It's from Halo Online, I believe, right?
Yeah, from Halo Online, yeah.
Yeah,
Because Halo Online was essentially Halo 3. So
yeah. That was that Russian beta,
El
right?
Dorito.
That got leaked. Huh?
It wasn't a beta, it was free to play Halo multiplayer.
Halo Online.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a different thing they're talking about. So
El Dorito was like another name it had for it for some reason. What was I going to say? I feel like this might be the precursor of more Halo maps coming in from Halo Online. I know there's quite a few. I never played the game myself, but I know there's quite a few.
What?
Halo Online? I mean, it was always so like in the back of my head. Like, I don't know.
Are you talking about that free to play thing?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Did you mean Halo
Online?
Yeah, Halo Online was only ever a closed beta in Russia.
Exactly.
6 years
that's
ago,
Russia,
never actually released.
Yeah.
The El Dorito thing you're talking about, Sol, is a fan-made mod that revived it for people to play.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah. All right. So
and also the fact that they're adding FOV sliders to basically everything, I'm hoping that means that there's further optimizations, because I was just testing a new hard drive that I swapped out my computer, and MCC still doesn't run locked 60 on the Series X. So they really need to get it to at least that.
Now, what about anybody have any thoughts on the custom game browser or the mouse and keyboard support for consoles? Any concerns with mouse and keyboard support for consoles?
I mean, they're gonna definitely have to put a.
They separate it by input, so you can choose to only play with controllers or mouse and keyboard.
Speaking of the input based, I swear recently I've been playing some MCC and I have the little check mark selected saying make it input based only, but I still get paired up with PC players.
Yeah.
I think that's a preference, but they will still pair you if for some reason they can't get another controller. That's the worry that I have.
Yep. That's my biggest concern. So as long as they're good at, I think it would be very cool if they could, match controllers on consoles to controllers on PC, because now you really are creating an environment like where people, let's say 2 years from now, I get a souped up PC and I want to just use that to play Halo for a little while, but I like to use the controller and I don't want to play against people that have got a keyboard and mouse. So I think that will always be the case for me with Halo will always be a controller game. So as long as I can get that matchmaking right and keep it fair, I think it should be fine. Any thoughts, guys? About what about the custom browser?
See,
Anybody
the custom game
excited?
route, what's
Yeah.
got me stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean, hopefully it means we'll have a custom browser day one and Infinite. Unless, have they already confirmed it?
I feel like it's alluding to like
honestly, the way I see MCC, it's basically a beta test for everything that's going to be Infinite. Like, if there's any content or features or whatever that is an MCC that isn't an Infinite, I'm going to be a little annoyed because like they should have everything ready day one with a delay, and they're already doing it for MCC. Like, there's really no excuse.
Here's a question: do you think they'll continue support through 2022?
For MCC?
For MCC, yeah.
Oh yeah, probably.
I honestly imagine they'll probably like do major support until Infinite launches, and then they'll kind of like slowly stop because like there's not that much more they can do. Like they've already done so much with the game.
Well, this goes into one of the questions we have, which is how long will they support it? And they've stated before, I'd have to find it again. They want to get it to a place where they feel really good about it, and then they open it up for the community to mod it.
The last video I saw mentioned that they were going to support it for this year, and then for the future they'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just going to be community based on future support after they get it exactly how they want. And one of the things I'm wondering about here, and I just see it just says this, and I don't see what it means. It just says advanced audio options, and the audio is very basic in Master Chief for what you can do in all the Halo games.
Yeah.
So I am really curious what that means. If like you can
maybe we'll finally get some vocal sliders.
Yeah, I had a big problem with that actually.
Dialogue and oh god, that'd be so nice. That's one of my things I've always wanted from those games for 20 years now.
But you guys don't think we might get something like Halo Infinite armor in MCC? Like in 2022 or something?
I was gonna say probably for the next year or two.
Yeah, that seems like a low hanging fruit.
I hope there's some overlap.
I could have sworn they said they're gonna like do something like that. Aren't they putting Mark 7 in MCC? Or is that Halo 5?
I think that's Halo 5. Wait, 5.
Yeah, because I know they're putting the Mark 7 armor, which is only in Infinite so far. They're putting it in one of the games, so but I could see them doing something like that. Or like,
I'm pretty sure it was MCC they talked about putting that.
It's not gonna be Halo 5.
Yeah, so.
By the way, that question did come from Big Z from the Xbox Era forums. He did say, with Halo Infinite coming out at the end of the year and 343 still introducing significant features, do you reckon 343 will stop providing significant support once it launches to support to focus on it, or will they continue doing similar level of support? The thing I'll emphasize, and this almost goes back to the topic that we should not try to revisit, but the fact that they can hire whoever. If there's a market there for it, they'll just keep expanding. We've already seen that Microsoft has no issues bringing in new people. It's not like resources are finite when it comes to supporting something that has has a community, has a business around it. So I think as long as MCC has a healthy community, I don't see why they would completely abandon it. Although I think to just point, a lot of what's going on now is kind of a beta test to get ready for Halo Infinite. I would expect these features to be in it day one, but at the same time, and also realize that the community is going to provide a lot of content for that game for a long time. So, but it seems like an easy thing to just say, hey, we're going to have a Halo MCC support team. That doesn't necessarily take away from Halo Infinite. It's its own business, right?
Well,
it's like
the thing is, the MCC team right now is only like a dozen people. Like it's really not that big of a. It's not some huge team. Like they have like 600-700 employees. Like they could set aside a couple dozen to just maintain the game. It's not going to take that much work,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And sorry, the second part of Big C's question, if Infinite will be part of MCC, no, almost no chance ever.
Yeah, I don't. No, yeah, I agree. Any thoughts on that? We got one more question. I know we are over time, so does anybody got any other thoughts, or ready to move on to the last question? All right, very last question, then we'll close up the show. Apache asks, He said, I'm sure you'll talk extensively about the S343 stuff, so I go more specific. He says, I love the grapple hook, but I really wonder how equipments are worth it to pick up. I'm not sure if a, let's say, 3 times use equipment is really worth it. I would go with a cooldown and make it an infinite use item. Now, this will give the game an interesting dynamic as a meta during a match will evolve around a player who has equipment, and the persistent goal is to catch this player while the general power weapon sandbox is at play. It would certainly be a really cool way to bring new life to the meta. So anyway, so any kind of thoughts on what he said there? I think we talked a lot.
Yeah, I feel like we already discussed this.
Yeah.
I could just add real quick. The way I see it, like I don't think it's gonna be like a one or unless it's super powerful. I think it's gonna be one of those things where like it probably has like 6 or 7 uses or something like that, and then it just dies. Like I don't think it's a thing where like it's constantly, like you can use it constantly, because I think they're gonna want it to respawn on the map eventually, and if it never runs out, then that wouldn't work. So I could see it being a thing where it has like a couple uses, then it dies or whatever. It's kind of like a power weapon,
or like
or power ups now, like
exactly.
right, like your shields, or maybe it's a timer. It could be just like a shield or the camouflage of the shield.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
So yeah, it could go
we
either
technically
way.
do have one more question, by the way.
Oh, go ahead and read it. So.
Yep. Sorry. The question is on our forum from Farsight XR20, and it's, what's your opinion about Halo Wars 3 and the future of the Halo Wars franchise?
Good question. I think this
Dead
ties
for a
in.
long time.
Yeah.
I was looking at the. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I think it's one of those things where like it's a really niche game, and it probably doesn't do well enough to put a lot of resources into it. I could see maybe down the road, but I think 343 is going to try to focus on games and projects that would have a wider appeal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that we kind of had a conversation about this earlier in our Discord. Large AAA RTSs are few and far between these days. They aren't like everybody said, they're niche. They're there's too much risk with so little return. But I'm hoping that Game Pass will. I mean, Phil has already said, and in some cases proven, that Game Pass has enabled them to take bigger risks.
Yeah, and
to
the trends,
bring new content. And people forget too, the gap between Halo Wars 1 and Halo Wars 2 was what, 5 years?
8 years, 2009, 2017.
Oh God, I'm old.
Wait,
okay.
Is that 8? Yeah, that's 8. Yeah. Yeah. Can you believe Halo Wars 1 was 2009?
I thought it was. Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So my point. That's my point. Like, just because it's not being talked about or planned now doesn't mean it will stay dead forever.
Exactly.
Especially after they acquire Sega, that's obviously something.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We just have to wait for the Sega acquisition, and then they'll get.
For the record, that Dream thing was a joke. Hello, before anyone friggin' says anything, that Dream thing was a joke.
What?
Oh
no,
it's set in stone now.
What is it?
Game Rant.
WCC, yeah, Game Rant didn't even listen to the end of this podcast and know it was a joke. They are going to clip you and quote you tomorrow.
I was going to say,
I've already seen a post on Reset saying the guy that said Gearbox is being acquired by Embracer has now said that Microsoft is acquiring Techland. I said neither of those things.
We all know that they're just waiting to announce their orange controller that matches Tails. That way they got Tails, Knuckles, and Sonic
Blue.
Whenever they announce their acquisition.
I feel like with Halo Wars, I mean, 8 years later, they still continue the story, right? So even 8 years from now, when Halo Wars 3 eventually comes out, and I feel the existence of Halo Wars 3 depends heavily on how well Age of Empires 4 does. In fact, I feel like the entire genre almost is waiting for this game to release and to see how well it does, and it might lead to like a resurgence, or it might keep the genre down.
Well, that escalated quickly.
And they need Age of Mythology anyways before they need Halo Wars 2.
Yeah, that too, honestly.
Or Halo Wars 3. So, to answer that question, I mean, I actually think Halo Wars is a quality game. It would have been fun to see how it did in Game Pass. However, there is, like to what you guys are saying, there's a lot of other spin-offs they could try and should try that I think the Halo universe is worth experimenting in. So it's worth putting that on the back burner.
The setup of Halo Wars 2 is good enough that it became the setup for Halo Infinite.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
mechanics and all that were built in Halo Wars 2. So I think that could be a real strength of any spin-offs, and maybe not a full-on RTS like Halo Wars 2 again, but if it's something like Gears Tactics, but a Halo style for that could also work as well. Like there are genres where you can do it on a smaller scale and it doesn't have to be a huge AAA thing.
True.
And you can make it work. Like Gears Tactics looks gorgeous, but like you can tell it's not a huge AAA coalition was all in on it. You find someone to work with 343 on it and you go from there. And I think that'll be the future of it once they're more in the groove with what Halo Infinite is after release.
Yeah.
All right. Good thoughts. Anybody have any other final thoughts about that?
We hit 2 hours, which I think is a record for us.
Really?
I think we've gone over 2 hours. I feel like
Our live show was like 2.5 or 3 or something.
You're right, actually, my bad. Yeah.
One last thing too. Log into MCC because they've got the Black History Month emblem that you can get.
Oh
before the end of the
yeah.
month.
Oh yeah.
I gotta log
They're
in.
gonna have. I think they're gonna have a Valentine's Day one too.
That is very Halo.
All right, guys. As always, thanks for that note, Mr. Daniel. And I think, as always, it was good discussion. It always ends up being. We always think, it's going to be a slow week. We'll get our first 45 minutes.
We actually said the words first 45-minute episode.
It's always happens. So it was great to Nick. Thanks
Glad
for
I
joining
could be
us.
of service.
Yeah, it's always it is always great when you jump in.
Yeah.
So I think we will need to look into some sort of hand raising button so we don't talk over each other.
We're gonna have to record these this earlier sometime so we can get sick in. Damn it! It's always Nick.
Oh yeah.
I want sick.
Yeah.
we're gonna go for 8 next time just to see how far we can push.
All about Forge.
You have to record either much later or much earlier.
Yeah,
we'd have to hit like early on a Saturday, I think. And then
so right now it's 1:30 p.m. here in Melbourne. If you were to record in another hour or so, you could do it.
Yeah.
So an hour from now.
Not for 6. That'd be like 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
We'll figure
Correct.
it out. We will figure it out. I don't sleep anymore anyway.
Well, a lot of our Xbox Era podcasts were recorded at that time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's when we used to record them.
Well, we'll get it figured out. I'll be there.
Morning boy.
All right, guys. So with that, let's go ahead and end the show, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Hopefully, we'll have our first 45-minute episode next time.
Oh no, next time's gonna be
we'll have the monthly Halo.
Exactly, and we know the topic too. I think, right? They said the topic. I don't remember what it was though.
And as a reminder, we got the book thing coming up next week. Some people might actually try to read, so we'll see.
Oh yeah,
or listen.
There'll be at least 3 of us.
Not me.
Oh, we made that comment earlier.
All right. So with that, go ahead and sign us off.
Yes. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Just because it was in my mind. Next, or this month's topic is going to be about Zeta Halo, which actually might tie in pretty well with our book episode.
Oh,
anyways,
Zeta.
Zeta. Yeah. I was waiting for that.
It's a Greek letter. Don't tell me how to pronounce Greek, people.
No, I knew I mispronounced it the moment I said it.
If your name is like Babe Karopoulos, I'd believe you that you Greek.
Anyways, guys, thank you for watching or for listening. If you've listened this far, then you know the spiel. If you like our content, please comment, especially. Any kind of comments we love, because it shows that you've listened and you want to communicate back and forth. If you have any questions...
Yeah, you just opened the door there.
If you have any questions you want us to answer... please let us know. You can comment anytime on the forums as well, or the YouTube comments. We'll see them. And as we mentioned earlier, we'll hopefully try and set up a community Halo night sometime next week. We'll let you know the exact date soon if you follow our Twitter.
All right, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sol. Appreciate that. And I guess with that, we will be signing off.
Thank you for
All
watching.
right, everybody.
Ciao for now.
Later, guys.